Hey everyone, welcome back to Rhythm Railroad. This is update number 43 of my HO scale layout. So I don't have a lot of time to do this update, so I'm going to try to go kind of fast. I got to put the baby down to sleep in a little while, so I got to get there. So a lot of progress in broken kind of like time frames, but I've been definitely making a dent. Right now I have a northbound coming out of state, lower staging here, this grain train. You can see it making its way up here, and it'll be here at the tunnel. There it is. So I have the volume off for right now just so that I can actually speak without having to yell over the engine sounds. So that northbound is routed all the way up. You can see it's coming up this way. I haven't labeled it yet, but it's going to make its way all the way through up into Saratoga Springs and all the way up to Plattsburgh. And that's where it'll be staged, way up there. So while that's happening, I wanted to kind of show you what I've been doing. And the way I'm going to do that is by taking this local job here. This is actually going to be one of my yard crew jobs. This train's going to be headed over to 3 industries. One is the sand and gravel. 2 is the scrap metal, which receives, well, it's not scrap metal, it's a metal company, but it also has scrap metal gondolas that get dropped off, and the full ones get picked up. And then there's a rubber company that receives black carbon car and a box car for whatever product they're making. Oh, my train came apart. That's not very professional. That never happened. So, while we make our way up with this train, I'm going to just take this one and show you what's going on. So nothing really much has happened in this is what I call the South Yard, except that I'm trying to figure out jobs. So this is another one of the jobs I'm creating, and that one goes up to the lumber company and over to Green to switch out those cars. These are going to get dropped off. Well, they're either going to be just a unit train that goes all the way up to Plattsburgh, or they're going to get dropped off in Whitehall Yard, which is kind of like the midway yard point. But I'm still working on all the what do you call it? Operating session details about how that's going to work. So let's get this train going here. Just make sure these are thrown correctly. Yep, here we go. I'm going to run it a little bit faster than usual, so I can make this video go a little quicker. So, nothing really has happened in this area either. Like so much progress and nothing has happened at the same time. The only thing I'm doing here is working out like little bugs and things that I've picked up on. There was a little kink over there, very small, that I worked out. But the yard itself is actually working pretty well. And one thing that I'm really happy with is this extension that I made over the summer. So this is going to be Mechanicville. The hidden staging here is actually 4 trains coming from Mechanicville. They go into the yard and then out through Schenectady over here. So that's kind of cool. I'm excited about that. I got a bigger iPad here so I can control this a little bit better. Just easier to see, and it's easier to get your finger in there without having to blow it up too big and expand it too much. So this job is going to go through the yard here, through the north yard, and then it's going to use this outside track here, or track 1, to make its way around these arrival departure tracks and also storage tracks, and it'll make its way over to the other side where the industries are. But I'm just kind of working out what I'm going to do here. The next thing I want to do here is start working on the shops. I want to make a little concrete platform in front of the building there. I still haven't figured out what I'm going to do in the backdrop. These are going to be like the fuel and sand right here. There's going to be a storage track here that also acts as a reverse loop for whatever reason needs to happen. The second level really hasn't been changed at all since the last one. The only thing I added was this backdrop here. which actually came out really good. And I think once I get the color tied in for the concrete, it'll really look like it's making its way in to that, to this parking lot here. So happy about that, and it blended in nicely with the backdrop that I already had, which kind of starts right here, goes all the way to here. So that's the only addition in the second level. This train's just about heading over to the other side, so let's walk around. Sorry about the mess. I mean, I cleaned up a little bit, but it's still kind of messy. So here's the grain train going past here. So on this side, you'll see that, this is actually kind of cool. The trains are kind of meeting here. So, the grain's obviously on the main, on the double main here. And this is the yard track, which also acts as a lead once it gets past this road here and goes underneath. And I love the way this has been kind of coming out. It's nice for taking pictures and making videos here, but it sneaks under here. And makes its way over what I consider the Mohawk River. I love how this came out. I'm still happy with how everything ended up coming out with the cascading little falls here, the way the ripples came out, and the way the light hits it, it really makes it look like it's moving when you walk around. And I like that this bridge was ended up being on an angle here compared to like the two in the back, because it gives it a little variety and a little bit more realism. On this side, I'm just working on this industry here, which is the sand and gravel. It's going to be called Mohawk Sand and Gravel. And the only thing I've done is add a couple of cars. I'm working on the fencing a little bit. But everything else pretty much was there. And the job here would be basically to get rid of the 5 gravel cars, because the next job we're going to do is over on the other side, and you can't get the 5 gravel cars and the rest of the train into the runaround track. So that's why you have to make sure you dump it first. I think that adds to the makes it more interesting once you're actually controlling this. So I guess I'll do that real quick. Let's get rid of it so I can show you the rest of the job. I'm actually not going to switch it. I'm just going to kind of show you where it is. But so we're going to go ahead and go forward here. And hopefully the other train will not have any problems, the unit train, because I haven't run this in a while. It's been like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And it's starting to get warmer down here, so everything's starting to expand a little bit. And I hope I didn't miss any issues with the track work. I don't think so. It seems like the less I care about it, the better the layout works. when I get really preoccupied with like people coming over and stuff, everything seems to kind of fall apart. All right, so that's lined up. We're going to just do this kind of quick. And what would happen basically is I would put these, which are empties, into the loading track, and then put these into the empty track. And then on my way back into the yard, I would pick them up. But obviously there's no gravel right now. So we're just going to leave them there. I'm going to uncouple. There we go. And then head out. We'll go kind of fast here. Blow my horn. Oop. That horn didn't. Oh, I guess I was doing the other horn. That was stupid. All right, so change that up. One thing that I do want to add eventually is I want to create like a little control panel here that controls all of the turnouts. So that industry, this industry, so that, that turnout, this turnout, the one for the entrance here. And this way you can control everything just from one spot. I think that'll be kind of cool. But I got to add tortoises and all that fun stuff. I might go with servos instead of tortoises. Oops. But you know, for now, I'm just gonna leave it hand thrown. So while we make our way, I'm sure you guys already saw this stuff on my other videos. This is an abandoned track that used to cross through here. It came out pretty cool. And I love doing this job because of the scenery, the way it's going to be, you know, kind of separated from everything else. It's kind of cool. So we got the grain train coming through here. We got a red signal here, which we have to ask the dispatcher for permission to get onto the main temporarily, just for a little bit, so that we can cross over and get over to the other side. So we're going to wait there for 1 second. I just wanted to mention real quick that this backdrop here, eventually I'll cut the sky out. And I'm going to start using the same method that I've been using on the other side, which is in this box, there's like a big roll of styrene, like very thin styrene, but it gives it just enough rigidity where if you use double-sided tape, you can get the backdrop to really stick well. And even when the, you know, masonite board starts to get a little weird over the summer and stuff, the plastic helps to kind of offset that, the styrene. And it's worked. For example, this whole thing here with the buildings, that's all styrene, and it's held up really well. And then this whole thing here, which we're going to get to, I just did with the styrene, and it's holding up nicely. So before I go over, let me just give myself access to the main. So here's where, well, you know what, I might as well label the train while I'm at it here. So here, the main line train is here. I'm going to call that northbound grain right here. That's number 560. And then this one here is my yard switcher, so I'm going to call that Dan for now. All right, so what I'm going to do is, obviously nobody's on the main right now, so I'm going to give myself the turnout and then give a signal. And then also I need to give this signal so I have a little headroom here. And then I'm going to, once I get to this block, I'm going to back in and shove back to the industries. So here we go. You see I have the signal here. I'm going to catch it. Yellow signal and drop. So we'll make our way down the main. Speed up a little bit more. These gaps from the gate were like really wide. I mean, they're still kind of big, but they're starting to close up. So you can see there's no problems even with the bigger gaps because they're cut at an angle, so the wheels catch at different points. And then, you know, it seems to get past here. It's a little bumpy here. I might add like little guardrails just to kind of make sure it doesn't derail, but you know, just a little bump and that's it. So yeah, we're making our way down. So while we're doing that, let me just show you what's going on here. So this is where I've made most of my progress. This whole entire section here, including this here, and then obviously the metal company back there, which I think I already talked about in the last update, but I guess we'll start here since we're making our way. Here's the other signal that we gave ourselves. Let's watch the signal drop. There it is. And then once we get past this signal here, we'll shove back, obviously with permission from the dispatcher. So what I've been doing here basically is adding ground cover, right? Not all of it, I still have to do all this stuff here. I had a building to cover this pole, which I got rid of because it was blocking everything. It's actually sitting back there right now. So I got rid of that. I'm gonna figure something else out that's a little bit less intrusive. Let me just give myself this signal here. Sorry about the camera movement. So here we are, there's Dan. I'm going to do that and then give myself the signal to back in. And what I did also is I basically, sorry, I'm just looking for my train. Oh, here it is. Sometimes I lose track of where the train is. So what I've been doing with the industry track is that I made the first part of it, this is kind of like a team track here, right? So I made up to like this first turnout here, a detected area, so that the dispatcher can see when there's a train waiting to either go out or when it's just kind of parked here. I just think it'll help. I don't know if that's realistic or not, but I don't really care. it's realistic to me. So this is the rubber company, and it receives the carbon black and the boxcar, as you can see there. So basically, right now it's going to be like 2 in, 2 out kind of thing. And then I'm going to do the same thing here with the switches. I'm going to make a little panel here that I can control all that stuff, so I don't have to be reaching in too much. Try to avoid that a little bit, but as you can see, the backdrop actually came out great. I forget which company makes this. I think it's Train Junkies or something like that. And I think it's called a Decrepit City or something to that effect. So if you're looking for this backdrop, it looks really nice. It's a little bit off scale. It's like a tiny bit big, in my opinion, but you know, it's nice because the buildings are kind of like at an angle, so it gives it more realism. I don't like backdrops when they're totally flat, when everything's flat. I like more when it's like a real picture. And you can see there's some angles on the buildings and there's some flat parts too, but you know, some backdrop companies only make everything flat. And so I try to avoid those as much as possible. I do have some, but I try to avoid it. So here's what the building looks like. I did a lot of work on that building. I tried to weather it a little bit. And then I'm gonna add a dumpster back there, some unloading pipes, stuff like that there. And this will be kind of like the parking lot here. And I finally cleared out this corner here so I can make it, kind of start working on it. So that's a big relief. I had a lot of junk back there. And then I'm gonna buy some other like tall buildings to kind of like make this look very busy, and like small streets, kind of like industrial streets back there between the buildings. So that'll be good. I made a ramp down to the lower level here. It's got to fill it in with the plaster there, so there's no bump there. And that's how the trucks get in and out of this loading area. And then over here, I love this. I made a lot of like overgrown bushes and weeds and trees. And what I'm looking to do is a canopy of trees here. Not a full canopy, but enough to kind of make it look like a tunnel. So when you look at it through here, it's a really nice thing to work with. But I can't go too far in because I do have to have access to that switch for now until I, add the little electronic control. But, also I want to be able to uncouple there and stuff like that. So I don't want to have trees all over the place. So I'm probably just going to go as far as like here without getting in the way of the signal. And not fully covered, but like little gaps here and there. Okay. So this is how it works. So we shove back into the industrial track here. We then have a runaround track. I don't know if you can see it right there. That goes all the way to here. And that allows you to get basically the size of this train minus a few cars. So the first thing I typically do is I'll shove back and I'll dump my caboose over there. And then I'll go and grab the 2 gondolas, bring them out, dump them there, and then hook back up to the caboose. I'll dump the other 2 gondolas, and then I'll be able to have the ones that are coming out with the caboose in the back. And then what I do is I'll start working on the metal building there, and I was able to add switches. I did a whole video on how I did the gates. So basically, there's one switch for each gate. So once I click it up, you can see the gate opens up automatically. And then I don't have to stop it. It stops on its own because I have a little like limit switch on it. So that's kind of cool. And then, obviously the other gate too. So again, I'm going to make a little control box for 1, 2, 3, 4 with the runaround. So I'll be able to control it from here basically. I think that'll be easier than having to like reach in for everything. I mean, I do still have to reach in to uncouple and stuff, but I can actually do most of the stuff here in advance and then just shove back. So as far as scenery goes, what's been happening here is, first of all, this backdrop is the newest thing here. And if you notice, it's the same exact backdrop that I have up there by the lumberyard. But you can't really, you can tell now that I pointed it out, now you can see it, but it's so far away from that other corner back there that you kind of like forget about what it looks like, unless you're really paying attention. And also, the other one is cut off like right here. So it looks a little bit different because there's less trees. I don't know, at least to me, it looks like, you know, it doesn't bother me. But I love this particular backdrop because, again, the buildings are on an angle. You can see the side of the building in the corner rather than having all flat buildings. So that's why I chose this one. And the street is actually perfect. It flows really well with the way, you know, I had my street already in place. I got lucky with that one. That's not easy to do. So that's the only new thing here. Obviously, the building is new and all that, you know, mechanism stuff with the gates and stuff. But from here on, the only thing I added was this building, which I already had. I just kind of plopped it in place. There's my grain train here. And then these I bought from that company that sells, I think they're called like background flats. And it's the same one times two. So you can see there's a seam right there, but they blend so well because of the way, you know, it's made and because of the way the cutoff point is. And also because you have a fence here. So it looks like it's just continuous. And you have the light posts or the utility poles right here. 1, 2. So what I might do is just add a third one here. Maybe a fourth one, just kind of like make it look like it continues. And then these are leftover. Remember that backdrop that I told you I cut? So this is the leftover tree line from that. I put it on both sides just to kind of like blend it in. So I think that looks okay. I haven't glued anything down yet because I'm afraid to. I can't commit yet. I gotta live with it for a little bit. But obviously it'll be like this, which I think will look pretty good. And I'll put more trees and stuff here to kind of blend all this in so it doesn't look so abrupt, right? So once you have all the trees kind of like continuing here, it'll look just like a big blob of trees right here with the utility poles in between. And I think that'll look nice. So besides that, I mean, there's nothing really to report down here. And then I'm just looking around up here. The only thing I did here is I added light because this was all in the dark. So I added LED lights up here. But I also put a limit switch under there so that when the gate opens, it disconnects the power and it turns this off automatically. I don't have to be worried about having a switch or anything like that. And I didn't want to have to run a whole nother bus just because of the gate and then have more wires, and, you know, it was a pain. So what I'm actually doing is I'm feeding it off of the 12-volt power for the actuator that I already had in place to make sure this gate is aligned. Again, I made a video about that, so check it out if you're interested in that. But it's basically a piston that pushes up against the bottom of this, and it aligns the upper part. In fact, I can show you right now because the train is already beyond this point. So let me see if it'll do it, because I still have to disconnect the bottom. But when I do this, what happens is the piston comes out and you see it disconnects the power. So power, no power. So I'm actually gonna open it up because I have to put it away anyway. Yeah, so that's most of the progress. That's been, this whole section here has been most of the progress. And then, you know, little things that I did, I got, like, I got a few cars, these two D&H gondolas I got some flat cars back there, along with the ones that you can put the 20-foot containers on. I got a couple of scale train coil cars, and that's basically it. I did get a proto throttle, which I'm totally psyched about, but I'm still kind of working with it. So I got this one Canadian Pacific kind of like working with it really well, and now the actual engine's acting up for some reason. So I think there might be a loose wire somewhere. So I got to open it up and check it out. Just curious to see where my train is. I have no idea. Maybe making its way up the helix. Let's find out. I hear it in the helix, which is in here. Oh, yep, there it is. There's the tail end of it. So, yeah, I mean, nothing else. I mean, I did get a few cars and trailers and stuff. This is a horse trailer. I like that one. I got an Audi there. Truck with some equipment there. So, it's all looking great. This I was working on, and that back panel from the bridge popped off, so I gotta glue that back in. But eventually this will be a nice highway type thing underneath the bridges. I think that's gonna look real neat. And then this yard is, you know, next as far as like getting gravel, rather ballast and stuff in here. I want to finish it off. I got to fill up these gaps and all that stuff first though. So more about that later on. And I think that is it as far as progress. I did make a station right here. So this is that typical Walther's station that came out pretty good. So I'm happy with that. That's going to be considered, it was supposed to be Fort Edward, which kind of looks more like this. But I've decided not to put it at Fort Edward, which is back there, because there's too much going on. There's no room for it. There's nowhere to put it. I was going to kind of shove it in between this here, but then, you know, it's just too much going on. So what I decided to do is move it over, and I'm going to call it Whitehall. This corner is perfect for it, even though it's on a curved track, but I don't care about that. So Amtrak can make it stop here, and if for some reason it needs to make a long stop, there's a crossover here for any trains that need to go past it and get by it. So that should help the dispatcher get traffic through. So yeah, so, you know, once this job would be completed, basically I would make my way exactly the same way back. So come out through here and then shove back into the yard, and then eventually end up here in the south yard. So, yeah, so, you know, the only thing that I'm kind of upset with is that when I had a lot of momentum going, and then, you know, once we had the baby, obviously it was my time was limited. So the one thing that I had to do was start thinking about operations. So I had already made car cards and holders and all kinds of things, but now I kind of lost track of like what I wanted to do, and now hopefully I can get, you know, when I have a spring break or whatever, I can get some of that stuff kind of figured out mentally at least, and then, you know, at least put it down on a computer somewhere on a spreadsheet or something, how trains are going to flow, and figure it out. So there's my grain train on the top level here, and it'll make its way all the way through here, past the signal here, and obviously past this train, and then over to the yard. So, you know, it's a nice long run. I would say I mean, right now I'm 27 minutes into the video, so it's a good, you know, 30 to 35 minutes if you run it at that speed. And that's kind of cool. And, you know, when I built this layout, I wanted it to be able to do other things while I had a train just running on its own. So when I'm down here, I actually have, what I did is I bought these cheap cases for these old iPhone, I think they're 5s or 7s or something like that. And so they had this little handle here, so I just put a piece of wood here, and I can basically push the throttle into it like this. So what I do is I have another one here, another phone. I'll take both of them, and I'll put them here like this, and now I have control of basically 4 trains, the dispatcher panel with the mouse, any kind of, like, you know, things that I need to add in as far as the keyboard. And I could do the whole thing right here by myself. And the cool thing about this is I could just pick it up and go. So I can move it around the layout room and still have control of everything. You know, and then if I want more trains running by myself, which I don't think I would necessarily want, I can still use, you know, the proto throttle for the yard, and I have a TCS throttle in case there's a guest or something. They can use that, or they can use these. So there's a lot of options, which is nice. And yeah, so sometimes what I've been doing, because I can't get down here that much, is I've been running trains from upstairs because, you know, I'm with the baby and everything. So sometimes I can, you know, what I do is I basically project this to my laptop, and I can basically dispatch myself. And these have enough of a signal where I can bring them upstairs, and I can run, you know, 3 or 4 trains at the same time from upstairs, and obviously follow them on the panel here, you know, and everything's tracking beautifully. So, plus I have cameras that rotate here. So what I do is I set another iPad next to the laptop with that camera, and then there's another one over there, and I can see basically the entire basement from upstairs. The only thing I can't see, which I used to be able to because I had a hookup for that, is the cameras for the lower staging. So, but besides that, everything's doing great. Oh, and by the way, the cameras, I don't know if you remember that I was having a problem with a couple of the cameras just being off, but it was like random. I figured out that it was exactly 4 cameras, right? Because there's 8 screens. So it was, 4 cameras are out. And I'm like, why is it 4 and 4? So when I looked through the wiring, I forgot that every 4 cameras requires a power source. So it ended up the power source was damaged. And that's why 4 cameras were out. So what I did is I switched the power source and then the other 4 cameras turned on and vice versa. So once I got the new power supply up, it all worked. So that was a $15 fix. Bedtime? Okay. All right, it's bedtime, so I got to wrap this up. So that's basically all I've been doing, and it's actually perfect timing because I'm basically in the yard up here. I'm just going to speed up so I can be done with that run. And that'll be the end of update 43, and hopefully I'll see you at update 44. All right, I hope you enjoyed it, and sorry about the camera work. It was terrible this time. Take care. Bye.